Hi, Ismail.
Hi, Ilya. Hi, Mr. Hi, Mr. Evgeny.
Morning, everyone.
Morning. If the attendees, before we go ahead and start, confirm that they can hear us and see the videos, if everything is okay. That is great. So thank you everyone for joining us in today's fifth NGN Majlis. Thus, to give you, I would say, a background about our platform. So as NGN International, we started the NGN Majlis. The word Majlis is an Arabic term for council, and that's the idea of this event. It's not to discuss any particular product or solution, but to actually spread cybersecurity awareness in our ecosystem here in Bahrain and the region. With us today is I would say, a very exciting panel from both local expertise and I would say foreign expertise. And in today's session, we'll be discussing the SOC in Action, which is a very interesting topic to see what does a SOC team go through, what is a SOC team composed of, and definitely during the session, questions are welcomed, interactions from the audience are welcomed. So please feel free to add your comments in the chat and to interact with us. I would like to give you a walkthrough of the speakers that we have with us today. We have Ms. Amna Al-Madhoub she's the Senior Information Security Analyst at Bank ABC. Thank you for joining us, Ms. Amna. We also have Mr. Evgeny. He's the head of CERT from NGN's partner group IB, the Detection and Response Unit. And also from the NGN side, we have Mr. Ilya Leonov. He's our very own head of security practice at NGN International. Myself, I'm Ismail Jubran. I'm going to be your moderator today. I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing at NGN International. So thank you all for joining us. Ms. Amna, Mr. Evgeny, would you like to give a quick also introduction from your side for your role? And during this time, I'll also invite the attendees to participate in a small poll question.
Sure, Ismail, thank you for the introduction. As Ismail mentioned, my name is Amna. I'm a Senior Information Security Analyst within Bank ABC. I've been working in the industry for quite some time now and witnessing the increased sophistication of both threat actors and also the skill set within the region and globally. I'm very glad to be here today and looking forward for an interactive discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Amna.
Yes, thank you, Ismail, for the introduction, and thank you, the whole NGN team, for the opportunity to participate in such great event. As was said, I'm currently at daytime. I'm working as the head of Detection and Response Unit in terms of Security Operations Center of Group IB, a worldwide company based in Singapore. We do on a daily basis. We provide monitoring, notifications, basic first stages of incident response to the clients worldwide. And providing them the necessary information on the threats, of the active threats that we have detected within their corporate infrastructure.
So basically, you give threat actors a very hard time.
That's correct.
Thank you for joining us. Ilya, would love to hear also a little bit from your side.
Yeah, thank you, Ismail. Thank you, Ms. Amna, Evgeny, for joining. Thank you to all attendees. And actually, the SOC topic is, one of the most, let's say, I would say it's largest topic to discuss. So I hope that we will do some interesting and interactive session today. So again, asking to all the attendees, please feel free to drop your question in the chat box, and we would love to hear from you, your experience in, let's say, in the region, or maybe if you're from some other territory, we would love to hear, let's say, other opinions on how to operate Security Operations Center effectively.
Thank you, Ilya. I would like to also confirm your point, Ilya. We have different, I would say, people from different disciplines. So whether you're, I would say, a cybersecurity expert, whether you're a SOC analyst or a threat hunter, etc., there you can ask all ranges of questions, whether it is, I would say, extremely technical or general on the topic. This is the right platform for it. Now, before we tackle our first topic, we'll have a quick walkthrough of today's agenda. Ilya is going to be introducing us to the internal tools and control measures that are, I would say, practiced and used in organizations across the globe. After that, we will move to Ms. Amna Al-Madhoub, and she will run us through the composition of a SOC. So we hear the word Security Operations Center all the time. What are the main pillars? What are the components that make a successful and a fully fledged Security Operations Center? After that, we are going to be moving into the external measures, where Ilya is going to introduce us to the concept of threat intelligence and dark web monitoring and how it basically enriches the cybersecurity postures and efforts of any organization. And last but not least, we will introduce the concept of blue team versus red team, where Mr. Evgeny is going to basically give us a walkthrough of the alerts and incident investigation that happens inside the SOC room before an incident, during an incident, and after an incident, where you will have the digital forensics and response team, and we will be investigating any threats through the threat hunting. And definitely, as I said, finally, we will have an official Q&A, but that is not the only time where you can ask questions. We can definitely have the open platform for everyone to participate. Ilya, we will move to your presentation, but we also have, while you are presenting, we will also have another poll question on this particular topic. But you can go ahead and start.
Okay.
Sorry, 1 second. So Ilya, before I put your presentation, and while the audience is answering the poll questions on basically, in their opinion, what is the key challenge in a security operations? You are going to be introducing us to the concept of the internal measures versus the external measures. If you can start off with that, we'd be more than happy to hear from you.
Yeah, thank you, Ismail. So I would like to start. As I said in the very beginning, that the topic is extremely, I would say, complex. I would like to highlight the most important, I would say, internal control that we have in the Security Operations Center is the team. So I would like to focus on that aspect. And since we have the name of the, let's say, of my part is the day of SOC analyst, I would like to elaborate more on that. So, yeah, if you can, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think this is a very, very interesting point. I think Ms. Amna and Mr. Evgeny can also confirm and agree with the audience, is that, yes, we can all be unanimous about this, that the lack of resources or the expertise is the biggest challenge faced by, I would say, all security operations efforts. And this is something that I think that the audience also agrees on.
Yes, correct. So, yeah.
I think we have the participations here, so I'll be moving to your presentation. Can you see can everyone see the presentation?
Yeah, I can see. Actually, yeah, please, again, for the attendees, if you, let's say, from your experience, you see that there is something really important that, let's say, we need to discuss, or you would like to highlight some specific topics or points, please feel free. We here not to, let's say, definitely we are here for the education, but not for the just the boring presentations. We would like to have this session interactive, and I personally consider this platform as the opinion sharing, and it's actually will help all the organizations, not for the particular industry, but cross-industrial. It will help everyone to improve their operations and, let's say, help each other on the, some day-by-day activities. Okay, so as I said, the day in the life of the SOC team, it's the huge topic, and the team itself, I believe, and actually I read a couple of the recent research, how the organizations, let's say, distinguish what is the most important part of the Security Operations Center. Definitely Ms. Amna will give us the detailed, I would say, explanation of different pillars and components of the SOC, but according to this research that I read, most of the organizations, they are point on the capabilities and expertise of SOC team, of the people. I can totally agree with that, because the team is, it's like, as I said, the most important internal control and measures for you, for your organization to provide the effective service. Can you move to the next slide, please, Ismail? Yeah, just again, brief understanding about the organizational model. So all of you know that we have the different levels and different, I would say, lines in the SOC operations. First line should focus on the quick responses and the most, I would say, most common incidents. So here is the most crucial part, very important, to follow the instructions, the playbooks, the procedures that you have internally. And the first line engineers or analysts, they should focus to, with the no time, they need to respond on the well-known, let's say, standard issues or maybe incidents. The basic rule should be followed here. So the first line, they handle the incidents that could be resolved in, as I said, in very short period of time. Usually it's less than 1 hour or even half an hour. So the second line can cover the, let's say, the incidents for which you do not have, for example, playbook developed yet, or it is require some isolation of the network segment or the working machine or whenever, or you need to engage more specific resources. All of the rest is, as I said, covered by the first line. So they need to provide the rapid reaction for the well-known, I would say, threats. The second line, they deals more with the in-depth analysis. So since that most of the incidents, common incidents, are covered by the first line, the second line, they actually have more time to investigate like some critical assets and investigate more complex incidents. Also, they should track the, let's say, the activities of well-known hacker campaigns like WannaCry, or I don't know what is the other well-known things like a Bad Rabbit. I think everyone is aware about that. So the third line, as we see, it's like they are mainly engaged in the advanced hunting, means like proactive search and isolation of complex threats, some identification of hidden activities. So here is if we see the significant deviation from the normal behavior, we report it to the third line. Along with that, as we can see, the engagement of the different levels of SOC analyst, L1, L2, incident responder, threat hunter, we should not forget about the automatization, which is the also crucial part for the effective SOC operation. But automatization improves productivity and incident response time. The activities for the SOC team, they can, let's say, they can utilize time more effectively. You know, if you automate some well-known attacks, you will, let's say, clear your schedule, and you will be able to focus on the, let's say, maybe more detailed investigation. But here is very important thing that automatization is needed not to exclude the people from the monitoring process. This is the biggest misunderstanding for some of the industry organizations. They're thinking that, okay, so I do not have enough resources, I do not have the proper team members, so I would automate everything. So it's not working like that. So you can expand the capabilities of the team, but not eliminate their, let's say, engagement in the process. So, yeah.
Actually, Ilya, I think this is important part also. I agree with you that automation is extremely important and critical, but we had this discussion, and I would also love to hear from our speakers today. When is the right time to automate? Do you automate right off the bat? Do you have to have a certain level of maturity? Is there I would say a magic timeline or a milestone that you think you have to cover before you start automating any of the responses?
I think that we can start an automation right off the bat because, and I totally agree with Ilya on that, automatization should be used in terms of not replacing the human being analyzing on the incident, but just in order to help them. In which ways automatization can help actually? Of course, it should be used in attribution process in different steps of incident response, like attribution or steps like enrichment of indicators of compromise. This automation is needed so the human, the analyst won't waste any time. And as was said already, the time of the incident response will shrink, will be reduced. So yeah, definitely it should be used in attribution. Definitely it should be used in gathering additional indicators of compromise, and so on.
Okay.
If I want to also add on what you just said, also there is a process of validating. For example, there is you can automate the responses, and you also can automate the handling of a certain type of alerts, for example. It's again subject to review and baselining. So once you find something that is of known nature, response to it is very specific, that kind of alerts you can automate the actions as well on, which will take us also to a SOAR platform, which again, I'm sure we will touch upon later on. But again, it requires not replacing the human, but having the humans drive the automation and to optimize the time of the resources.
Yeah. I totally agree.
We have a comment from Mr. Hassan in the audience. He's basically mentioning also notification fatigue. I think this is what you touched on also, Ms. Amna, in terms of ticketing notification. Sorry, go ahead, Ilya.
Yeah, I'm just checking the chat box. Yeah, actually, the last idea I would like to highlight here that even if we implement some automation tools to, let's say, expedite the process of response and investigation, actually it's become more, let's say, the most sensitive part in the response itself, because we need to continuously review and improve this automation. First of all, because we know that the threat actors, they are very creative nowadays, and they are always introduce us to some new things, new techniques, and actually it's quite impressive sometimes. This is, I think, disadvantage of our roles of the good guys. We are always one step behind. But from the other point of view is that automatization should be regularly reviewed, because the organization environment is the I would say, life structure. You have new, let's say, new equipment, new system. You're adding, you're removing, you're changing the IP addresses. So, and if something, let's say, changed and you didn't make the properly reconfiguration or fine tuning of your automatization system, so in the best way, you will just let's say, reduce the quality of your optimization. In the worst case scenario, it will be some bigger problem, for you.
Actually, I think we can have a whole separate session on automation in a security operations center, on security operations. It's a very interesting topic.
Yeah, I agree with you. So moving forward, if as we discussed, we have a different kind of tools and controls in our organization, and we see on the left side it could be firewall, proxy, IPS, IDS. It's endless list of the data sources or security controls which you could have in your organization, and you must let's say, integrate it with your SAM platform. So, by the way, I have a question to the attendees. From your experience, from which data source, let's say, or which data source you found the most valuable, and like, what should you connect at the first stage? I mean, maybe it's not like a right or wrong answer. It's like from your experience, from which systems you get the most advanced or valuable data, I would say. Ms. Amna, maybe you can share with us your experience. So
if you had to connect one log source, huh?
Yeah. If you have,
I was also interested about the question. Good question, Elia. So I'm waiting for the answers from the attendees. But if I would start with, definitely firewall, IPS, and Active Directory at the minimum.
Yeah, this is I agree with you. I mean, like, obviously, maybe for the different organization structures and different IT layouts, it could be different. But yeah, usually from our experience and our clients and partners, they confirm that usually if you cover the network part, it will give you the most valuable, I would say, data. However, the less things like endpoint protection, EDR, I don't know, proxy, DLP, definitely it help you to enrich the quality of events and improve the correlation, because the correlation is the most important part of, and the whole idea of the SAM system. It's not the log management, actually. It's not the collection of the logs. It's the proper correlation and gives and the outcome to the SOC team, to give the proper information about the incident. Because we
actually have answers coming in, Ilya, and Mr. Jafar is saying the firewalls agrees with the IPS, IDS. I'm interested. I'm curious here. Happy to see is that the EDP, I'm guessing the endpoint protection and the application control also coming into the equation, which I think also brings us to an interesting topic, is that the lines between these security tools are becoming very thin. So now you have endpoint protections that cover a depth of other features, from vulnerability scanning, application control, patch management. So they're no longer, I would say, just antiviruses. And as I said, the roles of these tools are becoming very, very closely correlated to one another as a standalone role, I would say.
That's true. Totally agree. The complexity of the systems becomes more and more, I would say, advanced, and it's almost impossible to manage them separately. That's why we are coming on the way of some kind of unification and let's say this umbrella approach that we have different data sources, different types of the systems, but they're provided from the, I don't know, single agent or single solution or different ways, actually.
What about infrastructure devices? Mr. Hassan is saying infrastructure devices would be his pick.
For sure. Applications, infrastructure, servers. Again, databases. As I said, it depends on the, let's say, organization structure or line of business. So for someone, the most important and most critical data is the IT infrastructure. So for someone, it's like it depends actually.
If I may, to put 2 cents in the discussions, from my experience, of course, we all start with the firewalls, with IDS, IPS solutions, sandboxes, and so on and so on. From my experience, if I have to choose one, it will be definitely EDR solutions, because it really helps and speed up the process of incident investigation in terms of whenever we see some suspicious or malicious communication going on from one of the hosts within corporate network, and we have a sort of agent on this host, we practically we can remotely see what particular process is initiating this such activity, what files, what file system activity this process is executing, and so on and so on. So my choice will be an EDR solution.
That's I would say very interesting, and I think it all enriches and feeds into one another. It's very difficult to pinpoint, I would say, one tool or to log source to integrate and to monitor.
Yeah, and if you add the cloud as well on top of all that, so it's only expanding, and with the technology changes, SOCs need to really be in speed with the technical changes as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Absolutely.
The cloud is actually a very, very interesting thing. So yeah, again, a huge topic to discuss, how to migrate, your services to the cloud, especially if you are a financial institute.
By the way, Mr. Vijaya Kumar is asking, I would say, something that is going to enrich the discussion moving forward, since we're moving into the main pillars of the Security Operations Center. He's asking, is the SOC more engaged in reacting to the incidents or in identifying the incidents? And I think it feeds into one another. Ms. Amna, since you are, I would say, handling the SOC topic, would you like to comment on this?
Yeah, sure. So to me, honestly, I see it as a puzzle. Each sub-process feeds to the other, and it's a continuous loop anyway. So SOC will care about prevention, detection, protection. It's all three together. It's not only one. So we detect incident, and we help also in investigating incident, especially if the IR team also is part of the SOC. I know in some organization it is, and in other organization it's a complete separate team. But if it is part of one team, then you are responsible for the whole thing.
Yes. That is. I hope this answers your question. So basically, the monitoring, the incident identification, and the response is all part of, I would say, the scope of a Security Operations Center. Now, since we're moving into the topic of what makes up, or what are the main pillars of Security Operations Center, we have asked the audience for their opinion on, in your opinion, what would be the main or the most important domain in a Security Operations Center? Is it the business? Is it the people? Is it the processes, or the technology, or the services? Again, this is, I would say, a trick question, but it is nice to see everyone's opinion on it. But yeah, people, I think we're also in agreement that people always is the pinnacle of any center, whether it's security, by the way, or any other function in any organization.
You do not have the option all of the above, Ismail. I don't know what to choose.
Are you confused, Ilya, with that?
Yes.
That's where the trick is.
Okay. That's great. So just to sum up my let's say introduction, we see that we discussed the people, we discussed the, let's say, some controls, but I would like to finish with the important idea that CM is not the equal the Security Operations Center. But why it is not equal, and what is the real Security Operations Center, what components we have here. So I would love to hear from Ms. Amna.
Thank you, Ilya. Ms. Amna, we're very excited to hear from you. And as you can see, by the way, this is something that Ilya is I would say, very passionate about. The myth that a SOC is a SIM. and we're very excited to hear from you on this.
All righty. Thank you, Ilya. Thank you both. And actually, it's to me became a slogan now. Because when I enter discussion and I hear that, okay, you have a SIM, then you have a SOC, it kind of doesn't add up. That's why I like to keep reminding that it's having a SIM is not having a SOC. Let me know when you can see my screen.
Yeah, we can.
All righty. So to begin with, I wanted to put some basics. To me, when we just start discussing the SOC, it's a very complex topic. It's a very, to me, it's a basic in nature, but it's very complex to put together. So that's why I thought to put it in, I would say, as easy as possible for the audience to understand. So why do we need a SOC to begin with? I mean, we just discussed attackers are always one step ahead. We're always trying to catch up. Attacks are increasing in sophistication and in nature, and even recently in our region, and Bahrain specifically, I'm sure many of the attendees, if they're here, would have received SMS message asking them to click or a suspicious phone call, and it's only increasing. So organizations need to be able to answer very simple but complex question. How do we detect an incident? And what is the severity of an incident? What is our impact on clients, on business, and the employees? Who is responsible? I mean, if there is a serious incident, who will do what? So all these questions lead to the need to having a security operation center charged of helping the organization answer these questions. I wanted to share light on OODA loop. It's a military principle, but again, cybersecurity in its essence a lot of it came from the military anyway. And this principle to me is very simple and yet very effective. It will help security managers and cybersecurity teams to answer a question. So it starts with in any issue or an incident, we need to observe the environment, orient ourselves, decide, and take action. And it's a loop. So you continue in an iterative process. If I put it in more context, so in an observe stage, we will need to monitor and collect and store data from various sources. As we discussed earlier, it could be firewalls, it could be EDRs, it could be DLB. So we need to collect all the key information. In orient stage, we need to analyze them. And here where we talked about the SIM role, the role of correlation, and role of the people as well. Writing the correlation rule, writing the use cases, it's all a part of the orient phase. Deciding is based on what we've seen so far, based on what we know. So what are the courses of action we need? Courses of action could be varied, could be something like containing the incident, but it could be as well a proactive future step that we will take. And acting or action is where we actually execute the decision that we've took in a previous step. We can apply this framework to any incident or any problem that we face, and I find it very useful for SOC team to understand. The next thing I wanted to also shed light on is the cyber kill chain. I'm sure many of you are familiar with it. And something similar to it is the MITRE framework, but it's a starting point for when we start to try to understand what attackers are doing in an organization. The cyber kill chain came from Lockheed Martin. It consists of 7 steps. So reconnaissance, weaponization, delivery, exploitation, installation, command and control, and actions and objective. Okay, so it sounds good. It sounds very military again. We do reconnaissance, we do weaponization. But if I want to put it in a real example, I would start with reconnaissance phase is about scanning the environment, trying to identify vulnerabilities. I'm sure we'll touch upon the blue team and red team later on. But part of the attacker tactic is that they need to identify their target. They need to know, for example, if a certain organization is running a certain technology. In order to attack it, we need to know, basically. So the reconnaissance phase is about gathering information. Weaponization. All right, so now I know that, for example, company X runs a web server, and it says Apache web server. And I know that there are 10 exploitable Apache vulnerabilities out there. Fine, so attackers could use that as a starting point to leverage and on creating their entry point to the organization. Next step, okay, I want to trick the employees into clicking. I'm going to send them a phishing email. When they click it, malware will be downloaded, and it will be my perfect entry point because it will also help me proceed further. Once an attacker is in the organization, obviously it's time to do more reconnaissance, more activities, more understanding and data collection within the organization, brute forcing for credential, exploiting further vulnerabilities. And again, once an attacker is in an organization, they want to maintain access. They want to make sure that they have access to their target at any point of time. So they're a phase of installing a malicious code or a backdoor for them to maintain the access. Again, once I installed my software, I want to make sure that I also know that it's working. So attackers will initiate a connection back to their command and control center where they can deploy further activities. And finally, the jackpot. Attackers are in, so their goal is to either destroy, exfiltrate data, launch a ransomware against the organization. Once they're there, that will be their actions on objective. Now, what does that have to do with the SOC? I think we had a question in the audience. What is the role of the SOC? So the SOC is responsible to prevent, protect, and detect. And it's a process again. Once we know how attackers operate, we can put prevention control, detection controls, and also detection. We want to know what happened. We want to know. We want to trace things back. So that's all a key role of the SOC. A common misconception, which Elia, you touched upon as well, SOC and SIEM. Yes, SIEM is a great technology. It's the heart of the SOC, but it's not the SOC. And why is that? Because there are many domains that we need to pay attention to when we are establishing our SOC. Again, SOCs can be managed, can be in-house. There are different ways to establish a SOC, but all of them, to me, should have a business aspect, people aspect, processes, technology, and services. The more we mature as an organization, our security operations center will mature. The services that we introduce would also be mature. I found this framework when I was trying to build a maturity roadmap for security operations center. This framework came from a guy called Rob, and I find it to be very eye-opening. So if I will explain the aspects of each domain, business is about establishing why the organization needs a SOC. It could be business drivers, customer driven, and at its heart, in what I've seen, mostly it's compliance driven. Organization need to have a way to prove to their regulator, to their management that they are in compliance of the security control and security requirements. So that's would be a good starting point to build a SOC. It's compliance based. But there are other things. There are other objectives that organization can set as its driver for having a SOC. It could be they want to know more about who they are targeting, who are targeting them. So it could be, again, another driver to have a SOC. People process. I mean, Elia, you touched upon this. There are different tiers within the SOC. There is different roles within the SOC. When we are establishing a SOC, we want to know who are our people, what are their roles, what is the hierarchy, and there are a lot of elements here. Would it be a 24/7 SOC? Would it be 12/5? Do we need to have 10 people? Does it need to have 8 people? So all these aspects are important. And it also can be used to mature the organization. It could be a starting point to have a few people and then scale them up and then increase the resources. Again, people aspect is very important. People education, training, knowledge base, it's all equally important in a SOC setting. Process-wise, as we said, SOC is responsible for monitoring, for prevention, detection, for response activities. So there are a lot of processes within the SOC. What I really want to highlight, a key component would be how we are managing the SOC and how we are reporting as well. We need to give a feedback to the CISO, who ultimately owns the SOC in ideal settings. And we want to make sure that we show the organization what is the impact of having the SOC. What did we do? How did we protect the organization? Another key process is the use case management. It's often neglected topic. We will get a SIM. The SIM will have its own rules, its own use cases, and we'll leave it there. And to me, that's one of the failures that I see in organization. Because technology change, attackers change, their tactics change. So we want to have a framework wherein we capture all that and build upon to enhance our detection and response. So use case management, having a framework, having documentation of the use cases, what is it that we want the analyst team to do, what playbook to be used, it's all very important. Technology aspects, we've mentioned a need to have a SIEM solution. There is also a need to have EDR solution, security analytics, IPS, IDS, automation and orchestration. And again, having a SOC is not okay, let's go build a place, get all these technology in and put them together and we will have a SOC. No, it's not about that. We could start very small by having a basic technology and building upon it. And as you mentioned earlier, Ilya and the guys, the correlation and how all these technologies will fit together is very important. It's no use to have technologies, and most of them are very expensive, that don't work together. So it's a mesh, and it's all need to, I would say, work together. Services, which is the final domain within a SOC, there are many services that a SOC can run. At its core, and the very key and first service that we should have is the security monitoring. That's why we're having a SOC. But again, there are other services that the SOC can offer as it matures. For example, incident management. Some SOC have IR teams within the SOC, some have it as a separate team. But again, it's a service that a SOC can offer. Security analytics, threat intelligence, threat hunting, log management, vulnerability management. They're all key services for any organization. It can be under one umbrella of a SOC. It could be run by a different team, but in essence, it's all work together. And to me, it's like it's always one process feeds the other. The input from it, the output from it is the input for the other process. Take it for an example. Security monitoring, the team will detect something, and based on it, you're going to invoke your threat intelligence team. They need to gather information about what we've just observed and who's behind it. And once we have those IOCs based on the incident that we've seen, for example, we want to instruct the threat hunt team to run hunts across the environment to see if we've been, I would say, attacked more. So it's all work together. And the beauty of having a SOC is orchestrating all of this. The role of a SOC manager and SOC analyst is, to me, orchestrating all this. It's like a symphony. We all have a role to play, but we need to play it all together nicely. And that's pretty much from my end. That's what I wanted to share with you guys.
Thank you, Ms. Amani. I think this is exactly sums up, I would say, the discussion so far. What is the role of a SOC? What makes up the SOC? And the importance of actually I would say building the team, reinforcing the technology, and making it all talk to one another. And I agree with your notion, is that it's not everything or nothing. So you can always, when security, it's a gradual approach. It's a roadmap. It's not that I'm going to have everything from day one. No, you can start off small and build up your maturity and your security as you go and as you learn.
Correct.
Yeah. I would also like to add here regarding the business drivers. I think it's also the most important part of one of the most important part of the SOC, I would say, model, because from the business point of view, you need to clearly understand why you have a SOC. So what is the goal? What is the KPI, KRI? So what is from which threats you are trying to protect your organization? For example, in my experience, I met let's say the SOC teams who are working with the financial department. Imagine, so they were not in the risk or IT, so they was extremely focused to the protection on the specific and monitor the specific let's say threats or any potential issues into the financial department. It doesn't mean, again, as you Amna said correctly, that we are trying to purchase all the systems, try to feed everything to the CM platform and have an extremely complicated solution. First of all, you need to determine why you need the SOC, from which threats you need to protect yourself. Yeah, so this is my point. I think business drivers and business should be more engaged into this process.
Completely, I agree with that. I mean, it's and I've seen in a couple of discussions where the business, I mean, in some organizations are clueless about the SOC. I mean, to me, it's again, it's, as you mentioned, it's a key. Business need to put forward what is it that they are after, why we are having this, and why we are justifying such investments as well. I mean, we all know operating these tools, having a SOC is not a cheap thing. So business need to be on board.
Yeah.
There was a great analogy from Amna on orchestration of the work process of the Security Operations Center, and I just wanted to highlight it again, that the key for successful results of your SOC team, of your SOC operations, is a good intercommunication between your tiers, between your level, between different groups within a team, between your specialists. As always, communication is the main thing. That's my point.
That is definitely, yes, that is definitely very critical. And I think now we've covered, or at least touched upon the internal environment or the internal controls. So Ilya, you walked us through the tools that are utilized by security operations. Ms. Amna explained to us how basically the main pillars or the domains of Security Operations Center and how they feed into one another. Now we can start looking outwards or into the external measures that are utilized by Security Operations Center, things that are beyond our endpoints, beyond our internal users. This is where we're going to talk about threat intelligence. We're going to talk about if an incident is identified. So Evgeny is going to show us what does a security team do for response? What do they do for threat hunting and investigation? Before we wanted to jump into the topic, since we're talking about, again, external factors and threat intelligence as a broader topic, we wanted to ask the audience I would say their opinion or their judgment. Would you, to improve your industry protection, would you be willing to share information about security incidents in your organization or that your organization has faced? And I think we are pretty split in between 50-50. And I think this is normal and expected. Some of us, I would say, are more protected and say that, I'm not going to share such information. The majority do say that, okay, they're willing to share. So as you cover this topic, Ilya and Evgeny, I think it is good to have this indication with us and the importance of threat intelligence and transparency.
Yeah, actually, I'm mentioned this initiative on the previous Majlis, and I will continue to do that on every Majlis, I think. So I extremely convinced that such information, I mean, like indicators of compromission and let's say any valuable data about let's say security incident into the organization, I mean, in the industry should be shared across the whole all players in the market, because if we face some, let's say, incident in one organization, it's not a good practice. It's a must even for some in some countries to share this data with other organizations to help them protect their environment, to make sure that they are protected at least from this well-known ransomware or attack or whenever. So I believe this is the great initiative, and it should be not, as I said, only through the industry. It should be on the government level, I would say.
Yeah, and we have actually a comment or a question from Mr. Hassan about what is the regulator perspective on this. Since we have, I would say, a very rich panel with us today. We have Ms. Amna from Bank ABC operating here in Bahrain. Ilya, you've worked in multiple, I would say, industries and countries. And Evgeny, you're headquartered in Singapore, but your threat intelligence is used, I would say, globally. So you have a good insight on this. What is the regulator's perspective on this, locally and globally speaking? What insight can you share with us?
I'm sure Ms. Amna can comment on that, but from my perspective, what I, let's say, noticed from the regulatory requirements, definitely this incident should be shared with the regulator itself. But what I'm talking about, to share it between the other organizations. So we have a statement in the regulatory requirements that organization may share that. It's like not the must, so it's depends on them. But I believe that it should be, like a mandatory. So if you face some incident, you face some attack, you need to, let's say, give a chance to your colleagues to protect themselves. So this is the idea.
Yeah, I would agree with that. From the reading of what the changes that's happening in Bahrain, there is a desire to enhance sharing across sector and also across country, not only a specific sector. And I'm really hoping that these initiatives actually do become reality. And there is nothing as well, in my opinion, stopping us security professionals to share the key highlights or the key IOCs for other organizations. I know people may be reluctant to share details of what had happened, but the IOCs and how we can protect ourselves, to me, it's something that we can be open about.
Yeah, agree.
Speaking of mandatory of sharing such information with regulators and stuff, it really depends on the country that you are in, that you're working in. If I'm not mistaken, please correct me. I know that in United States there will be a fee for your company if you will not disclose, for example, a ransomware attack on your company.
Yeah, it is you will get you will face the legal process.
Like a fee.
Not only fee, you can be jailed.
Yeah. Yes, sure. So it really depends on the country you're in.
But Evgeny, so sorry to interrupt you. From your, I would say, experience in Asia or maybe in Europe, so how it is look like? I mean, speaking not about the industries only, I mean like local security operation centers. Do they share this data between other security operation centers or with the regulators, with the government? How it is look like?
There are definitely a so-called community of certs of security operation centers worldwide there that are connecting with each other, sharing this very same indicators of compromise, the new tactics, and so on and so on. You might heard of some of them like First Team, Trusted Introducer, and so on and so on. I'm not much have information about on the relationship between a company and the states in different in the mentioned reasons, right? But in terms of communication between the teams worldwide, between well, homegrown SOCs and like SOC as a service teams, there are a lot of communities that are willing to share such information. Like maybe of course, they will be mostly de-anonymized and anonymized information, but the spreading, the sharing of indicators of attacks is very valuable in such processes.
So within these communities, I mean, the sharing of this information is like a free, right? I mean, like if we are as the SOC, we share this data with the other players in the market. This is our initiative, so we are sharing this data. It's not like
absolutely,
some mandatory thing.
Okay. If I may also add, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with FSISAC, but they are also trying to become it's a financial institution sharing initiative. It's US based, but they are gaining attraction as well in EU and also in Middle East. And they do have good initiatives in terms of sharing. I mean, for the audience as well, if they want to check them out, they do have kind of nice initiative onto building across sector sharing.
Ms. Amna, do you mind dropping it in the chat for everyone to check it out?
No, yeah, sure.
That's great, fantastic.
Ms. Amna, this organization, they're working with the, let's say, industries, or they're like cross industries, so they're working with the security operations centers or?
They do work with organizations, with financial organization, but they have also a relationship with CERTs as well.
Okay, great. Interesting to know.
Great. So now, Ilya, if you don't mind briefly giving us an idea of, since we discussed the topic of our indicators of compromise, sharing, and transparency between SOCs and security teams, if you can touch upon the concept of threat intelligence and dark web monitoring, and then we can finally jump into what happens, the aftermath with Evgeny. The floor is yours, Ilya.
Okay, great. So we discussed the day of life for the SOC team, but as I mentioned, the cyber criminals and threat actors, they are also not, let's say, wasting their time. So that's why the internal controls and the systems that Ms. Amna mentioned, and I will explain in the very beginning, the internal controls to protect your environment, it's not enough. So you need to, let's say, be aware about what's happening around your organization in the dark web, in the hackers forums, deep web, or other sources which can, let's say, help you to predict some potential, let's say, threats. Maybe attacks, or let's say mentioning of your organization in the, let's say, in the dark web. So first of all, if we touch the threat intelligence topic, again, it's a very complex and deep, I would say, topic. What types of threat intelligence do we have? We have different, let's say, groups of TI. First of all, it's the strategic threat intelligence. It's let's say very high level for the C-levels, for the general manager, some information about cybersecurity posture, threats, impact of the cyber activities, some attack trends. So this kind of information. Also, you have the tactical TI, which is more detailed, and here we have these tactic techniques and procedures, TTPs. This is more usable for IT managers, SOC managers, NOC managers, so it's more like a detailed data. The IUCs, which we talk about, is the part of technical threat intelligence. It's the info about attackers' resources, command and control channels, tools, and so on. So this is actually the most valuable to, let's say, to update your, let's say, security controls, internal security controls to be protected against attacks. And operational, it's like some specific threat related to the company. With the operational threat intelligence, you can identify the threat actor and determine his capabilities. So more, let's say, related to the information about the threat actor infrastructure and so on. But in general, we have these different types of threat intelligence. But again, the most crucial part here that you as the SOC team, you need to build your own threat intelligence. It's not like some kind of data feeds or information from the external organizations or the initiatives in the industry that we discussed. So on the daily, day-by-day activities, and I saw in the chat box the question, what SOC analysts doing during the day, you know. This is also the part of the SOC analyst duties. So he needs to enrich continuously the internal threat intelligence, the idea about the attacks, idea about the threats, and so on and so forth. If we can move forward, if we talk about the dark web itself, I just give a couple of examples on the, let's say, regional threats. It's, let's say, a couple of years back, but you can find this information every day in the dark web. For example, this is the sale of national databases. We see a lot of people who are trying to sell the data about the citizens, for example, in the Middle East region or across the globe. And the screenshot is not very good, but there is let's say, the people who want to buy it. So
they're shopping.
Actually, yeah, it's as a shopping. If you can move forward, we also see a lot of, let's say, activities for the joint cooperation for the cyber crimes. As we can see here, the threat actor, he's looking for some partners to perform some activities, some cyber crimes in the, let's say, in the Middle East. So this kind of data could be extremely valuable for the organization. I'm talking about not about the attacks, but if it is related to your organization, if you can find something on the same forums that, okay, guys, I have a BIN numbers or I have credit card numbers of this financial institute, or from the other hand, I'm looking for that, or I have a tool for, which is developed for this specific attack, and I'm, like targeting these industries. So yeah.
So Ilya, I think this falls under the definitely threat intelligence and what we call as digital risk protection or brand protection, right? So you need to make sure that both any private credentials that are owned by the organization are not leaked. But I think it also goes beyond that, right? Because as an organization, you have an obligation to your customers. So even if some of your customers' data that is related to your organization is leaked, I think it is something important. And this is why the concept that is almost forgotten of dark web monitoring is I believe, is extremely important too.
Yeah. Absolutely. And if you can move forward, the reason why we are using threat intelligence, as you said, it could be like some advanced information about the threat actors, their infrastructure, the recent attack, also the data breaches, data leakages. So we, as like an organization, we need to check continuously if there is something in the dark web related to our organization. The same regarding the brand abuse. If someone like parsed our website or our logo and use it for the credential harvesting, or I don't know, some phishing attacks. So this is also the part where the threat intelligence could be extremely useful. So, but again, coming back to our main topic, the threat intelligence, it's like we cannot start with it, right? So we need to reach some maturity level of our security operation. So first of all, as again, coming back to Ms. Amna idea that you need to start with the small, let's say, technologies with the clear procedures, with the incidents which are, let's say, maybe really basic, but based on the, let's say, maturity, and you will gain this maturity, you can improve and add additional internal controls. You can do the threat intelligence. So this is extremely valuable, but at the exact period of time, I would say. So here, I would love to hear from Evgeny, maybe some more detailed information about how you guys doing TI, and what is the important, the most important, if let's say you plan to build your own internal threat intelligence database, or you plan to subscribe it as a service, something like that.
Evgeny, you need to unmute. We can't hear you. I think we gave a very good build-up on this topic, I would say, of incident response now. So we know the security measures that have been taken, the tools that are utilized, the composition of the SOC. Also, we touched on threat intelligence, dark web monitoring as an external tool. But again, there is no guarantees. You can have the strongest fort, but there will always be some incidents. It's also about how you respond to it, how quick you respond to it, how do you investigate it, and to protect and to minimize the losses from such incidents. This is where we hand it over to you, Evgeny, to tell us more about this.
Yeah, sorry, can you hear me right now?
Yes.
Yeah.
So sorry, I just some interface issues. Or if you don't mind, I can answer to the previous Ilya questions from my side. Regarding what the main, or like the most important thing in threat intelligence from what we are doing here in Group IB, it is collecting as much information, retrospective information on every subject, whether it is IP address or domain name or hash of the file, is it SSL certificates, and so on and so on. We have an expertise for almost like more than 16 years and have this kind of data. On daily basis, we monitor and scraping this undercover dark web forums in order to research this kind of information about leakages, about selling of databases, selling of vulnerabilities. We capture this intercommunication between the threat groups on this kind of forums and chats and so on. So the main thing in threat intelligence, like from this perspective, it is collect as much history on threat actors, collect as much threat intelligence as you can, and then start correlating this information, whether either in automatic way or either by using your threat intelligence team.
That's great, Evgeny. And in preparation for your topic, we wanted to ask the audience, what do they think is the biggest challenge in post-incident response? Is it the lack of incident response plan? Is it insufficient backup and disaster recovery plans? Is it an absence of the qualified resources to investigate the incident? Or is it a non-practiced incident response plan? So we have the plan, but we haven't, I would say, walked through it and tested it. And again, I think it's the absence of qualified resources to investigate so far is in people's experience, or in our audience's experience, seems to be the biggest challenge. But I think it all.
I can confirm this from my experience. Here for today, I represent SOC as a service side of this whole story, and we stumble upon every day that the clients, security teams lack some skills, some knowledges about the security in general, about cyber threats and so on, and sometimes their availability to do practical things, whether it is locating a compromised host within corporate network, whether it is how to see what process is initiating this particular network communication, this kind of stuff. And we, of course, from our side, advise them, we teach them, and just in there.
By the way, this is not something that is identified as a negative, because it's impossible to have a team of 1,000 cybersecurity soldiers, right? This is why you have specializations. This is why you have consultants. This is why you have other teams that you can rely on to reinforce your cybersecurity efforts and your postures. So, in no way are we mentioning this as a negative. No, it's a positive thing to identify what gaps do I have and how we can fill them as an organization.
If you allow me to comment as well, it's a very interesting point from Evgeny. What I also would like to say, I mean, for the audience who are looking into joining a cybersecurity team or a SOC, learning never stops. I mean, that's a fact, and it's something that you need to know. Once you are in this domain, you're expected to continuously build upon the skills. It's not going to finish, and it's part of the excitement, to me at least. Technology changes, attackers change, and we need to speed up in our learning. Reading is a must for all of us.
Great comment, Amna. Absolutely agreeing with you on this one. All right, I believe I can start.
Yes, Evgeny.
All right, let's proceed. So for today, my part will be like more describing. Of course, it will be more of describing a blue side of the whole story, right? But of course, the red side also will be highlighted from the point of view within my presentation. So the agenda is the following. Quickly, we will go through the basics of incident investigation process, what blue team can be looked like. We will not stop there for a lot of time because previous presenters also conducted their talks around this theme, as well as incident response procedures, which steps we should take in one or another incident, and I will try to mix it up with the real world examples and so on. So let's proceed. Just quickly, let's talk through basic stuff. It was already mentioned, the cyber kill chain produced by Lockheed Martin. Everyone knows of it. I just wanted to highlight on the last part, just for refresh our knowledge, to remind ourselves the main goals of the adversaries whenever they decide to attack. It can be adversaries or your red team and so on. So it is to infiltrate into infrastructure. Main infiltrate into infrastructure, of course, it's data encryption for financial gain, for ransom, manipulation with software in order to obtain financial benefits, whenever there is spoofing of payment addresses and so on, stuff like that. Data theft, data leakages, of course. Espionage is very gross in last decade of years. It is like state-sponsored threat actors. Their main goals are especially espionage and so on. Of course, it's of the services, disabling of the systems, and so on. Here is an example of a little bit other kill chain from the Mitra attack framework. It was also mentioned by Amna. Another great concept, we all familiar with it. It is a knowledge base about current tactics for carrying out attacks by adversaries, techniques for implementing each of these attacks, tactics, and as well as procedures for each technique. Also, some thoughts and visions. There were also there also were 2 slides from my colleagues today about how can your security team, how can your blue team look like. This is more like my thought or vision. The key is, I just want to say it once again, the key for successful security operation team is a good communication between your tiers, between your and the more inefficient way you do this, in the less time you'll waste while doing incident response and so on. As always, communication is all we the human being got. In general, your incident response team capabilities should be composed from skills and experiences in the following like modules or like, of course, it's about log analysis from different kind of sources that we have already mentioned today. It is expertise in malware analysis and in endpoint digital forensic. You have to understand and handle. You have to learn how to handle properly threat intelligence information that you gathering from your feeds, providing a security assessment of Windows, of different kind of operating system and technologies. Of course, incident management is also a vital part of the incident response like toolbox. So let's talk about the incident response process with itself. I would like to start with some trends and differences in approaches that were before the time and the present time. If we're speaking about earlier days, it was mostly about like these incidents that were occurring. They involve only few hosts from the corporate network. Your incident response, it was like starting like with the shotgun principles. You start analyzing all the hosts within your corporate network, which was very time-wise wastely, and that was the era of so-called monolithic viruses, monolithic trojans. Whenever all the functionality they got itself, they like many things in one box. Right now, it is more a more agile approach to the incident response, and by this I mean that during incident response, we shall pay close attention only to the boxes, only to the machines that were actually involved in the incident, that we have a knowledge or that we have a hypothesis that were involved in the incident, that were used by the threat actor for lateral movement, for infection, and so on and so on. Were more like turn the machine off and forget about it, try to reinstall the operation system and so on. Right now, in the light of filelessness of modern malware, we should pay close attention to save as much volatile data as we can for our further investigation, for our further forensic analysis, because fileless malware persists only, well, it present is only in memory, so it is really vital not to turning, for example, not turning the machines off, but just isolating them from the local network, from the internet, and so on. Of course, if in the past there were monolith viruses, today modern modern Trojans is all about modular architecture. It can be first just a stager or a simple downloader that is encrypted, that is encoded with some custom packer, and only then it starts to download the payloads from many other sources, and it in order to pass all the common defense mechanism like antiviruses and so on and so on. So this is the classic incident response steps from Science Institute. You have most of you have recognized it. So let's quickly go through them and simple real world examples. Start with identification detection stage. Whenever a team receives a notification, it can be an alert in one of the system or a third-party technical report, some sort of, or a complaint from an employee. It then starts with like first high-level analysis of this, of nature of this alert, of nature of what is happening, searching for indicators of compromise, then proceeds with indicator enrichment process in order to find maybe another indicators of compromise, or maybe to attribute this threat, this activity in our incident to a certain threat, maybe to a certain malware family, to a certain threat actor group, and so on. It is considered that this process should take like from 1 to 4 hours, but mentioning our previous discussion on automation, we can reach by using automation, we can reach on different steps of this procedure. We are able to shrink, to reduce time, being twice as fast or even faster, and not waste so much time on like to complete our incident response picture, our preliminary incident picture. So here is an example of an alert on malicious DNS lookup activity. In this case, DNS sinkhole activity. You might know what DNS sinkhole is. If not, I will just quickly remind you. DNS sinkhole or DNS sinkholing is a special mechanism aimed at users by intercepting those DNS requests, attempting to connect to a non-malicious or any unwanted domain, and by returning a false, or let's say rather controlled IP address instead of the real one. So a controlled IP address can point to a sinkhole server of our company or for some sort of cybersecurity company. So, and the thing is, in this example, we can attribute this kind of activity to a certain particular threat. In this example, it is darkbot activity. Also, we can automate this kind of attribution, and so on and so on and so on. Another lookup similar to this one, but a little bit different, like another simple DNS lookup. The key questions should be, we should ask ourselves, we should ask our clients, or if you're internal SOC, you should ask yourself, is it activity of DNS controller or user machine? If it is DNS controller, is it an activity of block lists update or not? In case if it is really a user machine, what is the reason of this communication? Was it a one-time visit by user to a compromised site by randomly visit, right? Or was it is it activity of malicious? Oh, sorry. Is it activity of malicious extension, browser, or active malware infection is going on? On the analysis stage, it is continuous process. Well, it is all about examining the properties of an incident and obtaining information like the chronology of the incident, where the threat actor or the infection started, the patient zero machine, and the entry point of for the adversaries, and what infrastructures were involved in the incident, what number of hosts, what are these hosts, are they critical ones or not, and so on and so on. Of course, we then identifying the method that was used to penetrate our corporate network. Was it an email? Was it a flash drive that was put in one of the PCs? or was it an insider job? Maybe it was some a message link from the messenger and so on. We collect and storage, try to digital evidence about this particular information security by collecting triage dumps from the hosts, by collecting any types of logs from EDR type of solutions, network logs, and so on.
Evgeny, I have a short question. How do you store this this data? Because for me it seems like a huge volume, you know, of logs and you know.
Well, it depends. As I said, I represent the side of SOC as a service teams, right? For your internal SOC teams, the story can be different. So, for example, using the handpoint engines, we can remotely collect these particular triage dumps. We can remotely collect memory images, and all of them are transferring in the encrypted connections to the cloud for us to analyzing, for clients to analyze them, and so on. It depends. It can be saved strictly on client side and providing us with, for example, a remote connection to them and so on, or it can be passed to our side where we can practically do all the same process on investigating, on deep analysis and so on.
Okay, I mean the reason why I'm asking, and I think Ms. Amna is also aware about the requirements for the retention of the logs and other information, which is now, especially in Bahrain, it's 5 years or longer. So for the IT teams, it's you know, quite challenging, you know, to fulfill this requirement.
Yeah, I understand. There are a bunch of systems and programs for this kind of goal, for our goal, in terms of incident management and, of course, in terms of log collection and retention of logs, right? It is all, I believe it is all, to ask about what is like in general picture, how to save up, how to save your logs. But in general, yes, it differs from country to country, as you said. It differs from case to case, even different to tell you the whole picture.
Okay. But we've been asked all the time, you know, from the IT regarding the log retention, so that's why it's quite challenging, as I said. Okay.
All right. Yes, about the analysis process, one slide, quickly go through it. It's this continuous process, sort of a loop, when we always start with the hosts or few of them, then proceeding with IOC search on each host, then proceeding with discovering a new indicators of compromise or a new of network indicators. We start looking them up in our threat intelligence databases. Then we run all these that revealed indicators within all of our hosts in our company and or in client's company, right? And then this way we detect a new bunch of hosts that for our further analysis, and the loop starts again. Like just an example of quick analysis on alert. It is an alert regarding an activity of an exploit kit. We have detected, for example, a user visited the website and there was some network activities triggered the use of a known exploit kit. So key questions for SOC team here are: what was the purpose of visiting a compromised resource? In this case, compromised resource was forced.audio.ru, for example. Was it initiated by user or was it initiated by malware? Our instant action should be and could be blockage of this domain, for example, of malicious domain name that were used within the malicious script on the compromised site. It is blocked right away on the, for example. And further actions we can also to try to advise to stop the usage of compromised site, because we have detected that this resource was probably compromised. Right now there is one particular malicious script, but there can be another. We start analyzing it, and a threat actor, an adversary, can change this script anytime. So we should block all of these resources. Events with RED, with remote administration tools. Again, simple questions, simple but effective questions. Is this particular in this particular event there is EMI admin, a well-known remote administration tool? We see the activity of this particular tool. Is it allowed to use this particular tool within our company? Does the user know about this activity? Because we stumble upon a lot of modified versions of EMI-admin, of TeamViewer, of any other remote tool that are executed upon opening of the file, or downloaded and executed without the knowledge of the user. They do it without any graphical activity, and so on and so on. So all this stuff we should check, and so on and so on. Yep, about the analysis tips, we can differ from technology and operations. Of course, I won't go through all of them, but maybe of course, we don't investigate forever. We must prioritize your investigation efforts. For example, only perform forensic analysis on hosts that attacker have actually used or modified. In major incidents where an attacker has administrative privileges, it is impossible to investigate all potential compromised resources, which may include all corporate resources, for example, right? Information, of course, confirm that all investigation teams, all the security operation teams, including internal, external investigation, are fully sharing their data with each other. It is one of the vital principles. And of course, you should stay focused. We confirm that you keep the focus on business critical data, customer impact, and getting ready for remediation. There should be a clarity within coordination between teams, and role clarity. Establish distinct roles for operations in support of the crisis team and technical teams, with further legal communication teams, and so on and so on. So, yep. Containment stage. We try to contain the spread of the incident, isolate the infrastructure, and what can we do on these stages? We should go through all these questions. Where can we do it, and how, and for how long should we do this? In case of when we cope with activity, includes as external IP addresses of command and control centers, for example, or we have we can block, for example, this IP address on the gateway in the whole corporate infrastructure. In case of internal address, we use this. We isolation of network isolation of the host. If this is a laptop, we disable the Wi-Fi module of it, and so on. Domain name, the same story with the IP address. We add it to the blacklist and try to maybe we use the very same sinkhole mechanism if needed. Account names, regarding blocking of account names that of the personnel of the employee that were involved in the incidents. In case of spyware activity, when a spyware was executed, the data, the personal data, logins and passwords were exfiltrated. We should pay attention to, yes, in order, we should proceed with the action, blocking all the account related to this person, to all the person that the information of which were still blocking of them, changing passwords, and so on and so on. And so on. For example, let's pretend that we received a few number of alerts regarding scanning for vulnerabilities, like on reconnaissance stage. And right away, we should ask ourselves, is this target used in the client's company? What does it mean? That means vulnerability is aimed at some specific kind of software or device. We should ask ourselves, do we use these kind of devices within our corporate network? Do we use this software particular? If not, then there might be not a problem. If yes, how long wasn't it updated, and so on? We have to check up the current version. Was this particular vulnerability patched, and so on and so on and so on. Eradication step. Here comes sometimes it's one of the latest stages of incident response, but sometimes it can be crucial because it is really crucial part. Most of you, if you miss something on the previous stages, you could potentially leave the malware in your network again. You can leave an access to the threat actor again to your infrastructure, and there are numerous examples, for example, of when, for example, a company was hit by a ransomware group. There was a ransomware attack. For example, they paid a ransom. They decrypted their files for the first time, but they didn't do much on eradication stages and so on, and then they got hit by another ransomware or by very same group, and so on. There's real examples of it. This eradication stage is very important.
Yeah, just a short comment from my side. I even heard about the situation when the company has been hit by ransomware 3 times in a row. Imagine.
Yes, and we only could guess, was it the very same group of threat actors, or was it 3 distinct groups? Well, yeah. All right. The recovery. This is the launch of this incident process thing, and some tips or maybe some things on what we should pay attention. For example, this one, the first one, never reset all passwords at once. What does it mean? It means that password reset should focus first on the known compromised accounts that we revealed from our investigation, and potentially administrative service accounts. If warranted, user password should be reset only in stage control manner in order not to prevent business processes within the company. We consolidate execution or recovery task unless we face an imminent or like a very dangerous threat of losing our business critical data. We should plan a operation to rapidly remediate all these compromised resources, host accounts, etc. And of course, avoiding tipping of adversary whenever it's, well, maybe as practical, you should take steps to limit the information available to the adversaries that may be still present in your corporate network. About your recovery plan, you should recovery plan, your recovery operation. Adversaries typically have an access to all progress data and email in major cybersecurity incidents, but in reality, most attackers don't have time to monitor all of your communications. For example, when required, some incident response teams they successfully use a non-production Office 365 tenant for secure connection for members of the incident response team. And just for that, This way, you prevent adversaries that can still be inside a company's infrastructure to know about your plans and so on. Won't stop much also on this. Let's proceed with the threat hunting part. I want to start with the following points and start what is not a threat hunting. Why should this team and the hunt team should be dedicated group of people? Threat hunting is not a security controls monitoring. It is not, of course, searching of indicators within the network. It is not like real incident response, but they might have a lot of common, but this is very different kind of process. And it is not like straightforward linear process with a single output. There can be different type of things. There is a good explanation, there's a good definition of threat hunting process. It is a proactive process of searching for activity of advanced adversaries that have evaded existing security protocols, security controls in corporate network. The threat hunting cannot be automated at all because, well, in some sort it can be. We can talk about it after a few slides together, discuss this moment. Threat hunting is based on hypothesis generation on whether adversary can use this particular technique, these particular tools in order to infiltrate our corporate network in our particular case and so on. And by testing this hypothesis. And of course, it is very expertise dependent to do a threat hunting on a good level. Of course, we have to be knowledgeable about common threats, how they actually work, about common activity, advanced persistent groups, about should have a good threat intelligence fits, and so on and so on. Quick reminder on what dwell time is. So technically speaking, a dwell time is, well, it's just the time it takes for an organization or their security team to become aware of the breach. As you can see here on example, it is defined as the duration between the start of the cyber intrusion and it's being identified by security team. In recent incident described, why do we need threat hunting? Why organizations need this threat hunting activity within their companies? Adversaries nowadays focus more on making their activity look like normal. This way, our reactive security tools, controls cannot detect them this way. The threat actors, it can be the dwell time of threat actors within corporate network can be more than 300 days, and they're being undetected. They've been laterally moving. They use lateral movement to find the more valuable assets for their operation, and so on and so on. It's on the slide. It says 3 days to get a domain admin, but it's too long, I believe. I should change this information on the slide. In recent incident described in recent incident, there is a real case. In almost 4 hours after initial execution, the threat actors pivoted to a domain controller using domain admin credentials and executed the Cobalt Strike beacon. So, just in 4 hours. That means that your threat acting procedures, that your threat acting activity, there can also be, it is always a continuous process. It is always be an iterative process, and pay attention. Let's quickly remind you of the pyramid of pain by David Bianco. You might all of you have heard about it. This pyramid shows the level of pain of an attacker that attacker experiences whenever he changes his behavior. It is really easy for an adversary to change a hash value of his malware. It is really easy to change the domain name of command and control center, right? It might be not that easy to start using another tool within their chain of attack, or it is really hard to intermediate to substitute the tactics or procedures that this particular group is using, this particular threat actor is using. Threat hunting is focusing on the top three things. It is not about scanning for indicators of compromise within your corporate network. It is more about finding these anomalies, that can lead for your further investigation, and then can lead to the detecting of intrusion, detecting of suspicious activity. Here's just a high scope view what threat hunting process is. Of course, it depends on the logs, collection of information. We create a hypothesis. I will show you example in a second of hypothesis generation. Collect information about the threats. That means then logs. We test this hypothesis. We think about what adversary can do in the corporate infrastructure. How can they behave? What can, for example, we'll try to look. And by using this, this hierarchy of needs for advanced adversary detection, it starts with logging, then only it starts with alerting, and in the end, it's all about threat hunting. We detect the signs of suspicious, ambiguous, can equally indicate both suspicious events that can equally indicate legitimate activity or the activity of the intruders. Their source of logging, we have also mentioned all of them in today's previous presentations. I just want to share with you how to generate hypotheses and to quickly go through them, few examples of them, right? So of course, starts with the information collection. We use frameworks like MyTrack. We look up for commercial feeds, open source reports. Of course, our internal research and from our investigations experience that we have. We also use this, our previous hunt that were generated by ours. Then we combine all of this, in some knowledge base of attackers' capability, if in our internal knowledge base, right? Because we can handle all this information in our hand simultaneously. And then we start producing lots of different on how how a threat actor can execute its operation, how can it prevent detection of prevent its detections, how can it write itself in how can he pivot in the network, how can he use lateral movement techniques, what these are techniques, and we test all of this, of course. Yeah, just I have already told about this infrastructure. Dwell time ends when our incident response is going on. Well, when our incident response starts, we found, for example, some suspicious anomalies, and then we try to react to this incident. We gather all the information that was left by the adversaries, by the threat actor, and so on and so on. Let's go to this hypothesis generation. Of course, your hypothesis, as was said, it should be all cyber threat intelligence driven. You get your CTI notification, for example, about a new threat actor that targets financial institutions, that targets industrial organizations, in your region, and so on. There are many attackers' capabilities described, and we suppose from this report, we suppose that the presence of these specific techniques can lead or can tell us about the presence of the threat actor. How can this malware persist? What internal capabilities, recon capabilities they use, and so on and so on. Next, for example, your red team or any third-party researchers identified some new technique which can potentially be used by real attackers. Of course, we test this hypothesis, but there are no real-world cases where this technique was utilized yet. Of course, we try to see all this. We're finding out these new techniques by ourselves, and we make them. We produce queries, we produce so-called hunts for this kind of activity. Also, good to mention, threat actors are also humans, and they're great psychologists, most of them. Well, so they will definitely use in their social engineering attacks, in their phishing attacks, they also use some current threats about the Olympic Games or about the viruses, worldwide viruses, and so on and so on. So this is also can be a source of your hypothesis generation, right? Let's see what kind of emails we have received regarding the COVID situation. Let's see, or in your, for example, in your country, in your region, there was issued a new rule or a new some diplomatic, I don't know, agreement and so on. Let's try it out to find out was there any emails with the same similar subject and so on. Was there any activity from particular senders of this email and so on and so on. The generalized threat hunting process. Why do we need this? Again, dwell time reduction of the threat actors. Threat hunting team also produces new ways of detection methods that we then pass to the developers, to the SOC security operation teams. Again, we identify by trying to think like a threat actors, we identify the gaps in your security solutions, in your security perimeter, and we advise how to close these gaps. We're finding out about new tactics, techniques, and procedures. We also then we're reusing this information to write our new hunts and so on. So yeah, this is how it goes. Notice there's some hunts, some of your queries that were written can transform in sort of detection. Detection is not equal of threat hunting, because if you write a query that 100% says you that you were compromised, it is not a threat hunting. It should be a detection rule. That's what I wanted to share with you. Thank you for the opportunity to participate. Let's.
Thank you.
Thanks, Evgeny.
And I think your comment at the end, yes, is critical, and it builds also on a question that we've received, is whether can we consider external and internal penetration testing as threat hunting? And I think you and Ms. Amna both answered it. Now I would like to open the platform for our attendees if they have any particular questions on any of the topics that we've covered today. So just to sum up again and recap, we've discussed the internal security tools and measures that are utilized by SOC team or by security operations team. And then we moved forward with where Ms. Amna walked us through the main pillars or the domains that make up a security operations center. And from there, we covered the external tools and measures that are utilized and that can enrich a security operations center. And ultimately, we ended with basically threat hunting, incident response, and digital forensics, with Evgeny walking us through the process. Any questions? Let me turn into the Q&A. Also, during this time, if you can share with us, I would say, what is your feedback on today's session? Do you feel, we've asked the question, for example, how would you rate, I would say, your understanding of Security Operations Center? And after today's session, we're hoping that we have shed some more light. We were able to increase and share awareness. So if you can tell us from your experience, was there an improvement? Did you feel, I would say, that we covered the topic? And what was your take on it?
I think from my point of view, we touch only, limited area of the security operations itself. I think we need to have, let's say, another session to maybe show another aspect of the, let's say, operation and so on.
So today we've had a holistic look, and I think what we can do in our next events in NGN Majlis is basically dissect into the tools, into what we've discussed, into the processes one by one. But it's good to have a general framework, an overall idea of the concept of security monitoring, log management, and incident response. But I agree, it is impossible to cover it in 1.5 hours. It's a very complex, it's a very deep topic.
That's true.
So I believe we've covered all the questions during the interaction with the sessions. I want to thank everyone from the attendees and our valuable speakers for joining us today on our 5th NGN Majlis. We hope that everyone found this as a rewarding experience, and I would say had something to learn out of it. So thank you again, Ms. Amna. Thank you, Mr. Evgeny and Ilya, for shedding some light today.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks a lot. Very interesting discussions. Thank you. I've learned a lot as well today.
We are glad that we really appreciate your participation.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Till our next event. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.